Hello my friends all over the world, wherever you are. William Poloniak here again from Whole Health Foundation. And today I'm going to show you my spine health rejuvenation formula number 4. I'm on the 34th day of a long fast to rejuvenate my body and rebuild my spine health. I want to show you my ingredients. Here I have some wild dandelion that my wife picked for me, already cleaned. This is French sorrel. French sorrel is probably the most beneficial green plant that you can grow, and it cleanses every gland in your body as well as rebuilds your whole immune system. I have here a couple of collard leaves, some zucchini, some ginger. I'm going to put a whole head of garlic in, and here I have 1 beet, medium-sized beet, and about 50% or more carrots. Rotate your bowl. Check your wing nuts. Put in a couple of ice cubes. I want to point out my technique. I'm doing the dandelions first. But what I want to point out is when you're pushing your produce through to use both hands. And the reason for that is you want to keep your posture erect. So, both hands, steady. Another clump of greens. These are all wild dandelion greens. You can cultivate wild dandelion in your own garden, just don't throw away the weeds. Remember, both hands as you push down. Now I've done all my dandelion greens, I'm going to do the rest of my beets. 1 medium beet. And I want to interrupt this processing of the greens to point out that the Norwalk juicer was developed by Norman Walker, hence the name Norwalk. And if you don't know about him, buy his book, Fresh Vegetable and Fruit Juices, and read it. It's a very inspiring story. And thanks to Dr. Walker, I have improved the Norwalk juicer with many premium parts to develop the Whole Health Foundation Premium Juicer. So next I'm going to juice the French sorrel. And if you don't know the benefits of French sorrel yet, look it up on Google. You will be amazed at how delicious French sorrel greens are. It's the only greens I know of that actually it tastes sweet. Most greens are very, very bitter. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to juice the French sorrel. I want to point out again, whenever possible, use both hands to push your produce through. Now you're using both hands instead of just one hand because you want your posture to be as erect as possible. So let me show you that again. Get a small clump of French sorrel greens. Turn on the juicer. Put in the French sorrel. And then with both hands, slowly push the greens down. Rotate your bowl often, check your wing nuts often, and let's continue with the French sorrel. And then we're going to move on to the carrots. Notice the bright, rich color of the French sorrel compared to the deep color of the dandelion greens. So let's do a little bit more French sorrel. And point out again, both hands. And I want to stop briefly to point out how much I really like the new wooden pusher that has a tapered tip. It makes it much easier to push your produce in without it getting clogged up. So let's continue. Okay, I'm down to the last of my French sorrel. before I switch to the carrots, I want to point out again Norman Walker's book, Fresh Vegetable and Fruit Juices. Norman Walker was a chiropractor who found out how juicing could improve his health. A very, very good book to read. Now, before I do carrots, I'm going to dump them in the bowl here. Before I do carrots, I'm going to change from what's known as the J grid for juicing, all-round juicing grid. Scrape it on both sides and I'll clean this later. And I'm going to switch to what's known as the number 2 grid. It has 1/8 inch holes. It's much better for carrots. It extracts more juice from carrots. So we'll put that in, and you can do, when you have small carrots, 2 or 3 carrots at a time like I'm doing here. And remember, check your wing nuts often and use both hands when you push your produce through. Alright, I'm down to my last 2 carrots, and I want to point out a couple of tips. Remember, use both hands to push your produce through, rotate your bowl, check your wing nuts. Now, when you're down to your last produce, one thing you want to do, because there's always a little plug of carrot or whatever in there, is take a little bit of pulp that's already been processed, fill the tube up, and force that last plug of carrot through. I do that more than once. And the next step is to pull the thermometer out, pull out the grid, clean it, and clean the feed tube. I like to clean the feed tube and the cutter and the juicer before I mix my produce and press my juice. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll take off the feed tube, put any remaining carrot on the cutter into the bowl. And I'm going to get as much of the produce out of the feed tube as I can. And then I'm going to wash it. Clean the back, that's always got a little bit of pulp stuck on. And I'm lucky enough to have a spray nozzle that I can clean this. Now you can clean that off with a paper towel. I usually don't. I'm going to put the cutter on top with the hole down, and I'll put the cleaned grid holder and grid back in the cutter. And the next step will be to mix the produce. And the best way to mix it is to go in both directions. That way you get a really good mix. And then we will press the produce using my 6-cloth less work method, which I will demonstrate again in this video. Okay, I'm pressing juice, and I want to turn this off and point a couple of things out to you before I explain my 6-cloth less work method. I've had this press up over a minute, and it extracts 10% more juice because of the solid bottom plate that incidentally has a lifetime warranty. And I'm making this juice on the improved Whole Health Foundation Premium Juicer. Now, my 6-cloth method, my less work 6-cloth method. This stack of 2 cloths goes forward, this goes over, the spent cloths goes here, the new set of 2 cloths goes in the juicer, centered in both directions, all the way back on the lever and back it off a little bit. You do not want the juice press to go up too fast. So here we go with the less work method. You do not throw away this pulp. What you do is you put 2 spoonfuls of pulp on top of the old pulp in the beginning. Later on you'll only put 1 spoon because this patty is getting thicker and thicker. You pull this into a tight package, the tighter the better. Flatten that down, that's very important. A little crease at the back so you can fold it better. Now watch this technique. Come in a little closer. You take it with your fingers and fold it under, like so. Flatten it again, set it aside, advance it a little bit. Put 2 more spoonfuls of pulp on top of the old pulp. And this time I'm going to go a little more fast with my folding. little crease back here, a little crease there, pull it into a tight package, turn it over, flatten it, advance it all the way. Now because you are going to be using the pulp, again, you don't need to wait for every last drop. This has been up maybe 20 seconds. We'll take that down and we'll continue with the process. In the tray, centered, all the way back it off a little bit, and continue with the less work 6-cloth method. 2 spoons of pulp. Now I'm continuing with my less work 6-cloth method, and I want to point out that the cloths full of pulp are getting thicker and thicker. So from now on, I'm putting only 1 spoonful of pulp on top of the old pulp. So this patty is quite a bit thicker, at least twice as thick. So this time I'm going to put 1 full spoonful of pulp on top. Use the same folding technique. Remember, flatten it. It's very important to flatten it. Put it into a package, tuck it under, turn it upside down, flatten it, set it aside, advance it a little more. Okay, I'm noticing my container is full, so I'm going to lower this and I'm going to fill some bottles, but I'm going to push this tray back, not just a little bit, because you might damage your tray if you forget. You push it back a lot, so it's very obvious. Now, one thing I want to point out, when you fill your bottles, to be very aware of your posture and balance your weight on both feet. Now, it would be very easy to bend toward one side when you're filling these bottles, but plant your feet firmly and be aware of your posture. I fill my bottles so there's about 7 or 8% left for me to put some water in. I was told by a very wise chiropractor years ago that straight juice is much too sweet. And of course, if you want to drink pure juice, it's up to you, but I like to put in at least 7 or 8% water to top off my bottles. So I've taken the spent pulp and formed it into a thick, narrow ball. And again, I'm going to point out how I fold them on the bottom so that there's no slippage. And I want to see from this spent pulp, already pressed out juice, how much more juice we can get using a Whole Health Foundation Premium Model Juicer. So we'll put 2 of these cloths in here. And I want to mention again that you can leave the Whole Health Foundation model up longer than 20 seconds. So all the way back, we're going to back it off a little bit. And I have a measuring beaker here that's going to tell us how many ounces we get. All the way. It's going up a little too fast, so I'm going to back it off a little bit. Now, because my beaker's full, I'm going to back that off and I'm going to pour this into a bottle. I want to point out, anytime you touch a sponge or a countertop, wash your hands. So let's back that off. Let's set this aside and take the last set of 2 cloths with the spent pulp. Centered in the tray, that's very important. Centered in both directions, all the way back it off a little bit. And again, every time you touch a sponge, you wash your hands. Cleanliness is very, very important. That's it all the way. So 8 ounces plus, oh, so far another 6 ounces. Oh my goodness. That's it all the way. Another 8 ounces. And from the spent pulp, we got another more than 16 ounces. All right, I want to point out that I got 13 bottles of juice from this session. This is, I believe, my number 4 spine formula. And remember, one of these 16-ounce bottles came from pressing the spent pulp by repackaging and pressing it again. I hope you found this video instructive, and if you did, please tell a friend. If you'd like to call me, my phone number is 760-753-0321. My email address is developtrust@cox.net, and my webpage is wholehealthfound.com. I'll see you in the next video.